Hey guys, settle in. Find your most comfortable spot and let the outside world gently fade away. Dim the lights, may we light a candle for a soft glow. Or just let the gentle hum of your fan lull you into a state of deep relaxation. Let the sounds of my voice be a soft current carrying you back through time. And let me know in the comments where you are drifting off from tonight and what time it is for you. If you find peace in these whispers of the past, a quiet like and subscribe would mean the world, but only if it feels right. Tonight, we're not just learning history, we're tasting it. A history of desperation, of hunger so profound it reshaped humanity's diet. We're diving into the bizarre, the unthinkable, the utterly grim foods that sustained life when all else failed. So close your eyes, breathe deep, and let's journey back to a time when survival was the only recipe. Imagine a time when the very word bread was a cruel joke, a distant memory of golden fields and abundant harvests. The millstones grind, not with plump, life-giving wheat or rye, but with desperation. The familiar scent of warm yeast and baking grain is replaced by something far more unsettling. When the last sack of flour has been emptied, when the granaries echo with emptiness, people turn to what little remains. Sawdust. Yes, sawdust. The byproduct of the carpenter's trade. Once swept away as refuse, now becomes a precious, if grim, ingredient. Fine, dry particles gathered from the workshop floor, mixed with any meager scraps of grain, or even just dust from the bottom of the flour barrel, and straw, the bedding for animals, the dry stalks that once held the very life you now crave are meticulously gathered. They are chopped, pounded, and ground into a coarse fibrous powder, a shadow of flour, a ghost of sustenance. This mix, this desperate concoction of wood and dried plant matter, is then combined with water. There's no yeast, no leavening agent to give it life, no air to make it light. It doesn't rise, it can't. There is no life in it, only the stubborn will to survive. The dough, if you can call it that, is dense and unyielding, a heavy grayish mass. It is pressed into crude shapes, perhaps flattened into thick discs, and baked over an open fire or in a cold stone oven. What emerges is not a loaf of bread, but a slab dense and hard, more akin to a forgotten brick than a foodstuff. Its color is a dull, dusty brown, speckled with the lighter flecks of wood and straw. You bring it to your mouth. The smell is faint, woody, earthy, a ghost of what bread should be, tinged with the dry aroma of a forgotten forest floor. The first bite, a dry, rasping sensation immediately assaults your tongue. Each chew is a struggle, a battle against texture. The wood fibers, the straw fragments, they scrape, they catch against the soft tissues of your mouth. Your mouth, already parched from days of hunger, feels utterly desiccated as the dry powder absorbs every last drop of moisture, leaving your palate feeling like sandpaper. A faint, gritty crunch echoes in your ears, the sound of wood and fiber breaking down, but never truly dissolving. It's a sound of resistance of the earth refusing to be eaten. Swallowing is an act of sheer will, a painful effort. It catches in your throat, a lump of scratchy indigestible matter that scrapes its way down. This is not nourishment. It is an illusion of fullness, a heavy dead weight settling in your stomach, a constant reminder of what you lack, of what you truly crave. The bread sits there, a dull ache, a stone in your gut, offering no comfort, only the grim satisfaction of having filled a void with something that barely qualifies as food. When the fields yield nothing but dust, and the last scraps of bread have been scraped from the bottom of the barrel, people turn their desperate eyes to the silent, enduring forest. Not for game, not for berries, not for mushrooms, but for its very skin. You walk among the skeletal trees, your eyes scanning your stomach, clenching with an ache that has become a constant companion. Elm, pine, birch, willow, the inner bark, the cambium layer becomes the ultimate prize. This thin, moist layer, nestled between the tough outer bark and the wood itself, is where the tree's life flows, its sugars and nutrients. With a dull knife, or perhaps just your bare, calloused fingernails, you begin the laborious process of peeling. A crisp, tearing sound echoes in the quiet woods as the rough outer bark gives way, revealing the softer, paler layer beneath. The sticky sap, the resin, coats your fingers, a faint, sweet, yet pungent smell of pine or a subtle earthiness fills the air, a scent that will soon become synonymous with survival. Back home, the strips of bark are laid out meticulously to dry, curling and hardening in the meager sunlight or by the faint warmth of a dying fire. They become brittle, almost parchment. Like then comes the arduous task of grinding. It's pounded with a heavy stone crushed in a makeshift mortar until it becomes a coarse, fibrous powder. This is a task for every member of the family, a slow, repetitive rhythm of survival. This powder, mixed with what little water can be spared, is brought to a slow, bubbling boil over the embers. It doesn't dissolve easily. It resists, slowly thickening into a viscous, grayish-brown paste, a slurry that seems to cling to the spoon. The smell of boiling wood, of raw pine resin, or damp earth, hangs heavy in the air, cloying and unfamiliar, a scent that speaks of desperation. You bring a spoonful to your lips. The texture is alien, gummy, slightly slimy, clinging stubbornly to your tongue and teeth. The taste is immediate and profound, a strong, almost overwhelming bitterness, often underscored by the sharp, medicinal tang of pine or the acrid taste of tannins. It scratches at the back of your throat, a taste that refuses to leave, lingering long after you've swallowed, a constant reminder of the forest's raw, unyielding essence. It is the taste of the wild, raw, and untamed, reminding you of the desperate lengths you've gone to simply exist. A heavy, indigestible weight settles in your stomach, a false promise of nourishment, a dull, aching fullness that provides little comfort. This is the forest's reluctant gift, its second skin, a testament to the fact that when hunger truly bites, even the trees are not safe. When the fields are barren, when the trees have given their inner skin, and the last desperate crumbs of sawdust bread are gone, the gaze turns inward, to what remains in your meager dwelling, to the things you wear, the things that serve you, the things that once protected you, old leather. A worn belt, a pair of cracked boots with soles worn thin, perhaps a piece of an old saddle, discarded and forgotten. These are not food. They were never meant to be. But now they are all that is left. The process is long, a testament to the unyielding nature of hunger and the stubborn resilience of leather. First, the leather must be meticulously cleaned, scraped of any remaining dirt, grime, or the remnants of its former life. Then into the largest pot available it goes, a heavy cauldron filled with precious, hard-won water, is placed over a slow, constant fire, and it boils and boils for hours, for days. The kitchen, or what passes for it, slowly fills with a strange, cloying aroma, not of cooking meat, but of something industrial, something like old glue or a tannery, mingled with the faint, earthy scent of worn-out leather. The water, once clear, slowly transforms. It becomes cloudy, then thick, a murky, brownish liquid, taking on a gelatinous quality as the collagen in the leather slowly begins to break down. The leather itself, after days of simmering, softens, but never truly breaks down into anything resembling palatable meat. It becomes swollen, rubbery, gelatinous, yet stubbornly retains its form, a testament to its inherent toughness. You scoop a piece from the constantly bubbling pot, the steam rising, carrying that peculiar heavy scent. To your mouth it goes. The texture's alien, chewy, endlessly so, like a piece of tough, old rubber that refuses to yield. Your jaw aches with the effort. You chew and chew and chew, but it resists, refusing to truly break apart. The taste is faint, leathery, with an underlying bitterness, and that persistent glue, like essence that coats your tongue. Swallowing is a struggle. A heavy gelatinous lump slides down your throat, coating it with its strange, sticky residue. It sits in your stomach, a dense, indigestible mass. It fills you, yes, but with a heavy, uncomfortable weight, a feeling of being stuffed, yet utterly unnourished. Each bite is a stark reminder of the desperation, of the long, slow process of extracting the last meager bit of sustenance from something never intended to give it. The simmering pot, a constant presence, a symbol of endless waiting, endless hoping, for something that will never truly satisfy, but only postpone the inevitable. The earth beneath your feet, once a provider of sustenance, has become a source of desperate hope. When the fields lie fallow, stripped bare by the relentless grip of famine, and the forests have yielded their last meager offerings, a more ancient, primal instinct takes hold. It is the instinct of the earth-eater, a silent, somber ritual born of absolute necessity. People begin to turn their gaze downward, not to search for fallen berries or stray roots, but to seek out specific veins of clay, particular patches of soil that, rumor has it, might offer a fleeting reprieve from the gnawing emptiness within. The search itself is a quiet, deliberate affair. You move through the landscape, your eyes scanning for the telltale signs, a certain shade of ochre, a particular texture underfoot, perhaps a place where the earth seems less stony, more yielding. Once found, the digging begins, a slow, rhythmic scraping with bare hands or a crude implement. The soil is cool and damp against your skin, crumbling between your fingers. Sometimes it is a rich, dark loam, other times a pale, almost chalky clay. You gather it carefully, almost reverently, into a worn cloth or a cracked wooden bowl. Back in the shelter of a meager home, the earth is prepared. It cannot be eaten raw, not without causing further distress. Instead, it is often mixed with whatever sparse additions can be found. A few withered grass seeds, perhaps a precious, almost forgotten drop of rendered fat, or even just a splash of rainwater. This mixture is then kneaded, the gritty particles resisting the soft pressure of your hands until it forms a crude, heavy dough. The smell is distinct, a deep, musty aroma of damp soil raw and untamed, a scent that speaks of roots and decay, of the very ground itself. These are the ingredients for the mud cakes. They are shaped into flat, round patties, rough and uneven, then placed carefully on hot stones or a dying ember to bake. There is no rising, no golden crust. The cakes simply harden, turning into dense, unyielding discs, the color of dried mud. The heat draws out some of the moisture, leaving them brittle, yet impossibly heavy. The act of eating is a strange paradox. You lift the mud cake to your mouth, the rough texture already a challenge before it even touches your lips. The first bite is a revelation of grittiness, a coarse friction against your teeth that sends a shiver down your spine. Each chew is a labor, the fine particles of earth grinding against each other, releasing that deep, damp, almost metallic taste of the soil. It is a flavor of the ground, of minerals and cold, ancient earth, a taste that lingers on the tongue long after the last crumb has been swallowed. The true deception and the grim comfort comes afterward. As the mud cakes descend into your stomach, they bring with them a profound, undeniable weight. It is a sensation of absolute fullness, a heavy, almost stony presence that presses against your insides, tricking the desperate mind into believing that nourishment has been received. This isn't the gentle satisfaction of food, the warmth of digestion. No, this is a dead weight, an inert mass settling deep within you, silencing the pangs of hunger with a dull, persistent pressure. It feels like swallowing stones, like your stomach has been filled with anchors, heavy and unmoving, and for a fleeting, agonizing moment, the mind finds a twisted peace in that heavy, empty fullness, even as the body slowly starves. The taste of damp earth, the feel of grit, the leaden weight in your gut, these are the grim realities of the earth eater, a final desperate communion with the very ground that sustains and ultimately consumes all life. When the fields have been stripped bare and the last vestiges of stored grain have vanished, the gaze of the hungry often turns to the forest, not for game, which has long since fled or been hunted to extinction, but for the humble acorn, usually reserved for the foraging pigs, a sign of plenty for livestock. Acorns become a bitter harvest for human hands during times of famine. They lie scattered on the forest floor, small, hard, and deceptively promising, each one a tiny capsule of potential energy, yet also a vessel of a hidden poison. The process of making acorns edible is a long, monotonous journey, a ritual of patience born of desperation. First, the gathering. You walk through the rustling leaves, your steps muted by the soft carpet of autumn's decay, your eyes fixed on the ground. Each acorn is a treasure, picked up one by one, the smooth, dark shell cool against your fingertips. The sound of a handful of acorns dropping into a burlap sack is a faint, dry rattle, a sound of both hope and profound weariness. Back in the meager dwelling, often by the flickering light of a dwindling fire, the family gathers. This is a communal task, quiet and rhythmic. Shelling the acorns. A small stone or a dull knife might be used, the shell cracking with a satisfying dry snap, revealing the pale cream-colored nut within. The air might fill with the faint, woody scent of the freshly cracked nuts, a smell that hints at the forest floor and damp earth. This goes on for hours, fingers growing stiff and sore, a steady, repetitive motion of cracking, prying, and discarding the bitter husks. But the real work, The work that tests the limits of endurance and patience begins after the shelling. Acorns, especially from oak varieties, contain high levels of tannic acid. This bitter compound is not only unpalatable but also toxic, causing stomach upset and hindering nutrient absorption. To remove it, the shelled acorns must undergo a meticulous leaching process. They are placed in a porous bag, perhaps a piece of old linen, and submerged in a running stream, or repeatedly soaked in fresh water changed several times a day. The water slowly, patiently draws out the tannins. You watch as the water turns a murky, reddish, brown, then a darker, almost inky black, a visual testament to the poison being rinsed away. This soaking can last for days, sometimes even a week, depending on the acorn type and the urgency of the hunger. Each day, the water is refreshed, the acorns stirred, a silent prayer offered that the bitterness will finally depart. The smell of the soaking water is earthy, slightly acrid, a constant reminder of the arduous task at hand. After days of patient leaching, the acorns are finally deemed ready. They are no longer as bitter, though a faint, lingering astringency often remains, a ghost of their former toxicity. They are then dried, perhaps by the fire or in the sun, until they are firm but still pliable. Then comes the grinding. Using a mortar and pestle, or simply 2 flat stones, the softened acorns are slowly crushed into a coarse flour. The sound is a dull, rhythmic thudding, the friction of stone against nut, a sound that speaks of human effort against the unyielding will of nature. The resulting flour is usually a pale brown, smelling faintly of wood and damp earth, a raw, unrefined aroma. This acorn flour is then used to make a gruel or mixed with what little other flour might remain, to bake a dense, heavy bread. The taste, even after all that effort, is never truly pleasant. It is earthy, dense, with that persistent, almost metallic dryness on the tongue, that faint, stubborn bitterness that clings to the back of the throat. It is the taste of survival, of countless hours of labor, of a desperate bargain struck with a harsh, unforgiving forest. And every mouthful carries the weight of that effort, the memory of the cracking shells, the black water, the aching hands. It is a bitter harvest indeed, but one that offers a thin thread of life where none seem to exist. When the last acorn has been shelled, the last root dug, and the very earth itself has been scoured for sustenance, there comes a moment of profound, terrifying emptiness. The cupboards are bare, the larder empty, and the stomach growls with the desperate, all-consuming ache. In such times when true food is but a distant memory, people sometimes resort to a peculiar ritual, a psychological balm against the harsh reality of starvation, the making of stone soup. It is not a meal, but a performance, a desperate act of culinary theater designed to fool the senses and perhaps, for a fleeting moment, to soothe the mind. The preparation begins with water if it can be found. A pot, often blackened with years of soot, is placed over a dwindling fire. The water is poured in, clear and cold, and slowly begins to warm, then to simmer. But what to add? There are no vegetables, no scraps of meat, no herbs. So the search turns to the ground, not for food, but for props. Smooth, rounded river stones washed clean by the flowing water are carefully selected. Perhaps 2 or 3, small enough to fit in the palm of a hand, heavy and inert. They are placed into the pot, sinking to the bottom with a gentle, almost imperceptible plink. As the water begins to boil, a thin wisp of steam rises. carrying with it only the clean, neutral scent of heated water. But then, a spoon, perhaps a rough wooden ladle, is introduced. With slow, deliberate movements, the water is stirred. The spoon scrapes against the bottom of the pot, occasionally clinking softly against the smooth stones. It is this sound, this tiny rhythmic clatter, that is the true ingredient of stone soup. The gentle ding, ding, ding of the spoon against the pebbles, the soft gurgle of the boiling water, these are the sounds of food being prepared. Sounds that echo with the memory of better times, of pots filled with rich broths and simmering stews. For a brief, precious moment, the ear is fooled. The mind imagines a substance where there is only liquid and rock. Sometimes a pinch of salt might be added, if such a luxury still exists. The salt dissolves, lending a faint, briny aroma to the rising steam. You might lean over the pot, letting the warm vapor caress your face, a fleeting sensation of comfort in the cold, hollow space of hunger. The steam carries no actual nourishment, no comforting scent of cooking food, but its warmth is real, a momentary embrace against the chill of despair. When the soup is ready, it is ladled into bowls, steaming hot. There are no chunks of meat, no floating vegetables, only the clear, shimmering liquid. The stones remain at the bottom of the pot, their silent presence a stark reminder of the illusion. You lift the bowl to your lips, the warmth seeping into your cold hands, a small, tangible comfort. The first sip is pure, hot water, perhaps with a whisper of salt. It slides down your throat, bringing a momentary warmth to your empty stomach, a brief, fleeting sense of having consumed something. This is the soup of nothing, a deceptive potion designed not to feed the body, but to briefly quiet the mind. The heat offers a transient solace, the ritual provides a semblance of normalcy, and the clinking sounds create an auditory hallucination of sustenance. It is a testament to the human spirit's desperate need for hope, even when that hope is as insubstantial as steam and as solid as a stone. The memory of the clinking spoon, the taste of hot, salty water, the temporary warmth in your gut, these are the elements of a meal that never was, a ghostly comfort in the face of absolute, unforgiving emptiness. The last reserves of dried bark and boiled leather have long been exhausted, leaving a gnawing emptiness in the pit of your stomach that even the muddy clay cakes couldn't truly quell. But then, a subtle shift in the air, a whisper of warmth, and the first tentative green shoots begin to emerge from the still cold earth. It is spring, a season that usually promises renewal. But for you, it brings a desperate hunt for anything that can be called food. Your eyes, now acutely trained by hunger, scan the edges of the fields, the damp patches by the stream, and the shadowed corners of the forest. What you seek are not the tender sprouts of future crops, but the wild, untamed greens that stubbornly push their way through the soil. The humble dandelion, its leaves bitter but abundant, the chickweed, a delicate sprawl of green, and most prominently, the nettle. The nettle, a plant you've always avoided, now becomes a beacon of hope. Its serrated leaves, covered in tiny, hollow hairs filled with formic acid, are a familiar enemy. But hunger has a way of dulling fear, of transforming pain into a necessary step towards survival. You approach a patch, your movements slow and deliberate, your hands, already chapped and calloused from endless labor, hesitate for a moment. Then, with a sigh that feels more like a resignation, you begin. Each pluck is a gamble, a quick, decisive snap of the stem hoping to avoid the sting. But often, the tiny hairs find their mark. A sharp, immediate burning sensation prickles your fingertips, then spreads, a dull, throbbing numbness that lingers. Your skin reddens, blotches appearing where the plant has lashed out, a visible testament to the cost of this meager meal. You try to use a scrap of cloth, a corner of your tattered tunic, but it's clumsy, and the need to gather quickly outweighs the desire for comfort. Your fingers become swollen, stiff, and strangely insensate, a testament to the repeated assaults. You continue methodically, ignoring the growing discomfort, filling your rough woven basket with handfuls of the vibrant green. The nettles, the dandelions, the sorrel with its tart bite, all are tossed in together. A strange, earthy, slightly acrid smell rises from the collection, a scent that is now inextricably linked with the desperate promise of sustenance. Back in your small, smoky hut, the process continues. The nettles must be handled with care even after picking. You plunge them into a pot of cold water, then bring it to a boil over the meager fire, the flames licking at the soot-blackened metal. The water turns a murky green almost immediately, absorbing the sting and bitterness from the leaves. You boil them again, and perhaps a third time, each cycle drawing out more of the unpleasantness, each cycle a test of patience. As they cook, the vibrant green slowly fades, transforming into a dark, olive-green mass. The distinct, fresh scent of wild greens gives way to a heavier, more pungent aroma soften a deep, almost metallic grassiness, mingled with the ever-present smell of wood smoke and damp earth that permeates your home. The leaves collapse, losing their structure, becoming a soft, yielding mass. Once sufficiently boiled, you drain the water, pressing out as much moisture as possible with a flat stone or the back of a wooden spoon. What remains is a heap of dark green sludge. It's unappetizing to look at, resembling nothing so much as moss that has been scraped from a damp wall, or perhaps the contents of a stagnant pond. The texture is strangely slippery, almost slimy between your fingers. You might try to chop it coarsely with a dull knife, or simply mash it with the spoon. This green sludge is then eaten, often with a small piece of the coarse, sawdust, laden bread if any remains. The taste is profoundly earthy, with a lingering bitterness that even repeated boiling cannot entirely erase. There is a faint metallic tang, and a strong, almost overwhelming grassiness that coats your tongue. It's not pleasant, not by any stretch of the imagination. But it is green, it is something, and for a stomach that has known only emptiness or the heavy, inert weight of clay, this provides a different kind of sensation. The immediate effect is often a violent distension of your belly. The volume of the fibrous greens, though cooked down, is still substantial, and your starved digestive system struggles to process it. Your stomach feels tight, stretched, and painfully bloated. Gas builds up, causing discomfort, groans, and sometimes sharp, cramping pains. It's a bitter irony to finally put something green into your body, only to suffer a new kind of internal torment. But even this discomfort is preferable to the gnawing, all-consuming emptiness that came before. It is a sign that you are, for now, still alive, still struggling, still finding a way. And as you drift towards a restless sleep, the lingering taste of bitter green and the dull ache in your belly are your lullabies. The seasons turn, and with them the desperate search for sustenance shifts. If you find yourself in a land where the earth has been stripped bare, where even the wild weeds have been scoured away, perhaps in a place like the Netherlands during the brutal hunger winter of 1944 to 45, your gaze might fall upon something unexpected. No longer just the fields and forests, but the manicured plots, the ornamental gardens, the very symbols of beauty and prosperity that now stand as a stark, mocking contrast to your own gaunt frame. Your eyes, hollowed by hunger, fix upon the remnants of what once brought joy, the flowerbeds. Specifically, the places where tulips once bloomed in vibrant profusion. Beneath the frozen crust of the earth, nestled in the dark soil, lie the promise of next spring's color. 40 the tulip bulbs. These are not food, not by any conventional standard. They are meant to be cherished, to rise again, to burst forth in a riot of petals. But conventional standards have long since vanished, replaced by the stark, undeniable imperative of survival. With tools that are often no more than sharpened sticks or bare, aching fingers, you begin to dig. The ground is hard, frozen in places, resisting your efforts. Each scoop of earth is a struggle, each clod a small victory. The cold seeps into your bones, numbing your hands, but the knowledge of what lies beneath drives you onward. Finally, your fingers brush against a firm, rounded object. A tulip bulb. It feels cool, solid, a small encapsulated promise of life. You carefully excavate it, brushing away the clinging soil. The bulb itself is layered, like a small, tightly wrapped onion. Its outer skin is papery, often dark brown or purplish, dry and brittle. You begin the painstaking process of peeling. Each layer comes away with a soft rustling sound, a delicate whisper of dry plant matter. It is a strangely intimate act, stripping away the protective layers to reveal the pale, fleshy core within. The air around you is still. The only sounds the scrape of your nails, the gentle tenor of the papery skin, and the distant, hollow rumble of your own stomach. As you peel, a faint, earthy aroma rises, mingled with a subtle, almost floral sweetness, a ghost of the beauty it was meant to become. The inner layers are white, sometimes creamy yellow, firm and dense. They look remarkably like small onions, deceptively plump and promising. But the resemblance ends there. You take a small bite. The texture is crisp at first, then becomes somewhat waxy, resistant to the tooth. And the taste, it is profoundly strange. There's an initial sweetness, a sugary note that surprises you, a brief, fleeting moment of something pleasant. But this sweetness quickly gives way to something else entirely. A distinct, almost metallic bitterness spreads across your tongue, a sharp, unplaceable tang that contrasts jarringly with the initial sugar. It's not the clean, pungent bite of an onion, nor the fresh earthiness of a potato. It is alien, unsettling. If eaten raw, the experience can be even more challenging. A raw tulip bulb can cause a distinct burning sensation in your throat, a peculiar fiery irritation that makes swallowing difficult. It's not the heat of spice, but a chemical burn, a warning from the plant itself. So you learn to cook them. You bring them back to your makeshift kitchen, perhaps a single pot over a fire. The bulbs are sliced, then boiled, sometimes for hours, to try and mitigate the bitterness and that odd burning sensation. As they simmer, the water takes on a pale, milky hue, and the strange, sweet metallic aroma fills the air, mingling with the ever-present scent of hunger. The bulbs soften, becoming somewhat gelatinous, losing their crispness. When finally deemed ready, you eat them, slowly, deliberately. The texture is now soft, almost mushy, but still with that slight waxiness. The sweetness is still there, but muted, subdued by the cooking, and the metallic bitterness persists, a constant underlying note. It's a taste that is never truly satisfying, never truly comforting. It simply exists, a strange, floral, infused, metallic sweetness that fills the void, a temporary reprieve from the gnawing emptiness. Each mouthful is a reminder of the desperation that led you to dig up flowers, a testament to the lengths to which life will cling, even to the most improbable of sustenance. And as you swallow, that faint phantom burning sensation might still linger, a quiet echo in the back of your throat, a peculiar lullaby of survival. The fields are barren, the forests stripped bare, the weeds plucked, and even the ornamental flowers consumed. What remains? What can possibly be left when every living thing, every scrap of plant matter, has been devoured? In the deepening desperation, your gaze turns to the earth itself, not for what grows within it, but for what it has already claimed. You think of the animals that once roamed, the livestock that once filled the pens, the game that once darted through the woods. Their meat is long gone, consumed in the early days of the famine. Their flesh a distant, fading memory. But beneath the soil, or perhaps scattered in the forgotten corners of the farm, lie the last, most stubborn remnants, their bones. This is a testament to an absolute, unyielding hunger, a hunger that refuses to acknowledge defeat, that seeks to extract every last infinitesimal calorie from the world. You begin to search, digging in the hardened ground where animals were once butchered, sifting through the refuse piles, scanning the paths where carts once rumbled. You might find a femur, bleached white by sun and rain, a rib cage half buried, or perhaps the skull of a long-dead sheep. They are dry, brittle, devoid of any obvious nutrition, but your mind, sharpened by starvation, sees only potential. Bringing these macabre treasures back to your shelter, the work begins. The first task is to clean them, scraping away any clinging dirt or desiccated tissue. You might boil them, not to soften them for eating, but to sterilize them, to loosen any stubborn grime. The water in the pot turns cloudy, taking on a faint, almost imperceptible odor of decay and mineral. Once clean and dry, the real labor starts. You need to break them down. A heavy stone, a crude hammer, anything that can deliver a crushing blow. You place a bone on a flat, sturdy surface, perhaps another large stone or a section of an old tree stump. Then, with a grunt of effort, you bring the hammer down. The sound is dull, heavy, a muffled thud that resonates through the quiet, hungry air. Crack. The bone splinters, sharp shards flying. You repeat the process again and again, each strike a slow, deliberate act of demolition. The larger bones resist, requiring multiple blows, each one sending a jarring vibration up your arm, a dull ache in your shoulder. Eventually, the larger pieces are reduced to smaller fragments. But this is not enough. To make them digestible, to extract any possible nutrient, they must be ground into a fine powder. You take the bone fragments and place them in a mortar oven, perhaps a hollowed-out stone favre, and use a pestle or another smooth, heavy rock. The grinding is tedious, monotonous work. A rhythmic, scraping sound fills the air, a dry, grating whisper as the hard bone is slowly pulverized. Your arms ache, your back protests, but you continue, driven by the image of a slightly less empty stomach. Slowly, painstakingly, a pale chalky powder begins to accumulate in the mortar. This is bone meal, the ultimate, desperate reclamation of the past. It is dry, incredibly fine, almost like flour, but with a distinct mineral scent, a faint, almost metallic dustiness that tickles your nostrils. This bone powder then becomes a desperate additive. You might stir it into a meager pot of water, creating a thin, grayish, white soup. It offers little in the way of flavor, perhaps a faint chalky taste, but it adds a certain body, a milky opacity to the water, making it feel more substantial, more like a meal, even if it is mostly an illusion. The texture in your mouth is dry, fine, almost like dust, clinging to your tongue and the roof of your mouth, making your throat feel parched. It catches in your throat, requiring sips of water to wash it down. Alternatively, this bone powder might be mixed into the last precious scraps of flour sundae. Perhaps the sawdust-laden flour of earlier days, or whatever meager grain might still be found. It stretches the flour, adds bulk, making the resulting bread even denser, even more unyielding. The bread baked with bone meal is whiter than usual, a ghostly pale, almost unnatural hue. When you chew it, there's a distinct grittiness, a fine, sandy texture that rubs against your teeth. The taste is bland, chalky, with that faint mineral echo. It offers no comfort, no delight, only the heavy, inert weight of pulverized calcium. Eating these bones, this dust of forgotten life, is a profound act of desperation. It is the very last resort, the ultimate scraping of the barrel. It's a stark reminder that even after death, the remnants of existence can be pressed into service, a silent, grim testament to the unyielding human will to survive, even when survival means consuming the very past itself. And as you swallow that dry, chalky powder, you can almost feel the echoes of ancient life, now reduced to a mere whisper of sustenance, settling heavily in your empty stomach. The dull thud of the hammer, the grating scrape of the stone, and the dry, throat-catching powder become the sounds and sensations of your fading day. The sun dips below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of bruised purple and muted gray. A fitting backdrop for the quiet desperation that settles over your village. Tonight the air is still, heavy with unspoken truths. You sit at the rough-hewn table, the flickering light of a single tallow candle casting long, dancing shadows that make the familiar seem strange, the ordinary grotesque. The hunger, a constant, gnawing companion, has sharpened your senses, but also dulled your judgment, blurring the lines of what is permissible, what is unthinkable. For weeks, the field mice, once a persistent nuisance, have vanished. The scrawny pigeons that used to perch on the thatch roof, now only ghosts in your memory. Even the stray dogs, skeletal shadows that once roamed the muddy lanes, have disappeared into the silent, hungry maw of the Famine. And then there was the cat, a creature of comfort, a purring presence by the hearth, now conspicuously absent. No one asks where it went. No one needs to. The silence at the table is thick, a heavy blanket woven from shame and survival, a shared secret that presses down on every breath. A wooden bowl is placed before you. Inside, a small portion of meat, dark and stringy, swims in a thin, watery broth. It's not the familiar smell of rabbit, nor the faint aroma of a squirrel caught by some desperate snare. This scent is different, an unfamiliar tang that pricks at the back of your throat, a sour, almost metallic note underlying the faint hint of herbs you've tried to mask it with. Your hands, calloused and chapped, reach for the wooden spoon, trembling almost imperceptibly, a tremor that is more than just weakness from lack of food. You lift a piece to your mouth. The texture is tougher than anything you've eaten recently, fibrous and resistant. It requires effort to chew, a persistent grinding of your molars against something that feels both elastic and brittle. There's a faint, almost imperceptible crunch, a tiny fracture of a bone, smaller than you'd expect from any creature you're used to eating. It's a sound that reverberates not just in your ears, but deep within your conscience, a quiet accusation. You try to rationalize it, to tell yourself it is just meat, protein, fuel for a fading body. But the thought feels like a lie, brittle and sharp. The taste. It's gamey, yes, but with an edge, a sharpness that doesn't quite belong, a flavor that speaks of something wilder, something closer to home than you'd ever admit. It coats your tongue, a lingering, almost oily film that defies the thinness of the broth. You try to swallow, but your throat tightens, a psychological knot of resistance, a silent protest from a part of you that still remembers comfort, still holds on to the old ways. This isn't just sustenance, it is a transgression, a line crossed in the desperate theater of survival. Each bite is a battle, a small victory against starvation, but also a defeat for the unspoken rules of your world, a chipping away at your own soul. You chew slowly, deliberately, the rhythmic motion, a desperate attempt to normalize the act, to convince yourself that this is just another meal. The broth, thin and lukewarm, offers little comfort, only carrying the strange, unsettling flavor deeper into your mouth, a taste that refuses to be forgotten. It is a flavor that doesn't nourish the spirit, only the most basic primal need. Your stomach, once a cavern of aching emptiness, now feels a different kind of ache, a hollow, cold sensation that has nothing to do with hunger and everything to do with the heavy weight of what you are consuming. You glance around the table. Your family eats in silence, eyes fixed on their bowls, their faces drawn and pale in the candlelight. No one speaks of the cat that used to weave between their legs, rubbing against their shins, its soft fur a memory now almost too painful to recall. No one mentions the small, quick movements of rats in the rafters, now ceased, leaving behind only an eerie quiet. It's a shared secret, a collective burden, understood without a single word, each person silently bearing the cost of this meal. The only sounds are the scrape of wooden spoons against bowls and the soft, almost imperceptible sounds of chewing, each sound amplified in the profound quiet. The meat is meager, but it fills you in a way that is less about nourishment and more about resignation. It's a temporary reprieve, a stave against the relentless tide of hunger, bought at a price that leaves a bitter taste long after the food is gone. You finish your portion, the last bite feeling like a leaden weight settling in your stomach, a cold, hard stone of memory and regret. The meal ends, but the silence lingers, a profound testament to the unthinkable choices made when survival is the only law. The lingering taste in your mouth is not just of food, but of the moral compromise etched into your very being, a taste that will return in the lonely hours of the night. It is a taste of utter, absolute desperation, a flavor that marks you, changes you, and will never truly leave. The harvest was poor, terribly, tragically poor. The granary, usually brimming with the golden promise of the year's toil, now echoes with emptiness. You run your hand over the rough, hewn planks of the floor, feeling only dust and the ghost of abundance. The cold, stark reality of the famine presses in, chilling you far more than the biting wind that whistles through the gaps in the walls. You've eaten the bark, chewed on boiled leather, swallowed the bitter clay, and even endured the unthinkable meats. But now you face a choice that feels like tearing a piece from your own future. In the deepest, darkest corner of the granary, a small, tightly tied sack remains. It's not for eating. It's the seed grain, the precious, life-giving kernels that hold the promise of next year's crop, the slender thread of hope for survival beyond this brutal winter. To eat it is to guarantee starvation in the coming year, to sacrifice tomorrow for the chance of enduring today. The weight of that decision presses down on you, heavier than any stone, more chilling than any frost. You untie the rough twine, your fingers stiff with cold and apprehension. The sack opens with a soft rustle, a sound that usually signifies abundance, but now feels like a death knell. Inside, the grains lie nestled, plump and golden, each one a miniature sun, a tiny repository of future life. Wheat, perhaps, or barley, destined for the soil, destined to sprout and grow, to feed your family when the sun returns. Now they are destined for your starving stomach. You scoop a handful, the smooth, hard kernels cool against your palm. They feel alive, vibrant, a stark contrast to the hollow ache in your own body. This isn't flour ground and prepared. This is raw, unyielding grain, meant for the earth, not for human consumption in this form. There's a faint, earthy aroma, a scent of potential of growth, now tinged with the bitter smell of desperation. Each kernel represents not just a meal, but a season, a cycle of life broken by your very hand. You bring a small portion to your mouth. The first sensation is the hardness. These aren't soft, cooked grains. They are unyielding, requiring significant effort to chew. Your teeth grind against them, a dry grating sound that seems amplified in the silent granary, a sound of desperation and destruction. It's like chewing tiny, hard pebbles, each one resisting, clinging to its purpose. The texture is rough, almost abrasive, scraping against your tongue and gums. There's a faint, nutty taste, but it's quickly overshadowed by a raw, almost metallic bitterness, a flavor that speaks of dormancy, of life held in suspended animation. It's not satisfying in the way cooked food is. Instead, it feels alien, uncooperative, a stubborn refusal to yield its full nourishment. You swallow, each hard kernel a small obstacle in your throat, a dry lump that seems to catch and stick. It feels like you're swallowing tiny pieces of tomorrow, literally consuming your future. The hunger in your stomach is momentarily dulled, replaced by a strange, heavy fullness that offers no comfort. It's a fullness born of regret, a leaden weight of sorrow. You look at the dwindling pile in the sack, each grain a silent reproach, a tiny accusation. This isn't just eating, it is an act of profound sacrifice, a tearing away of hope. You are not simply feeding yourself. You are dismantling the very foundations of your family's future, making a choice that will echo through the lean months to come. As you continue to chew, the rhythmic grinding of your teeth against the hard grains becomes a monotonous drone, a sound of grim determination. Each mouthful is a tiny internal battle, You feel a strange mixture of relief, the immediate, primal relief of putting something, anything, into your empty stomach, stuffy, and a profound aching sorrow for what you are losing. The grains are hard, unyielding, a physical manifestation of the harsh reality you face. The granary, once a symbol of security and future sustenance, now feels like a tomb. The echoes of your chewing, the rustle of the sack, the quiet of the empty space, all contribute to a sense of profound isolation. You are alone with this choice, alone with this act of sacrifice. The seed grain, meant to be scattered across fertile fields, is instead scattered into the barren landscape of your own desperate hunger. And with each hard, unyielding bite, you taste not just the grain, but the bitter, unshakable truth of a future irrevocably altered, a future you have just consumed. The long days of famine have blurred into an endless, great continuum. Your body, once vibrant and resilient, has become a vessel of profound weariness, a canvas painted with the slow, deliberate strokes of starvation. The frantic, gnawing pangs of early hunger have receded, replaced by something far more insidious, a deep, pervasive lethargy, a profound, heavy drowsiness that pulls at your limbs and blurs the edges of your thoughts. It's as if your very being is conserving its last flicker of energy, preparing for a long, unwilling hibernation. You lie on your straw mattress, the rustle of the dry stalks beneath you, a faint whisper in the overwhelming quiet of the hut. Your stomach, having endured the strange, unyielding textures of bark and clay, the sourness of unthinkable meats, the hard resistance of seed grain, no longer protests with sharp pain. Instead, it feels like a heavy, dull weight, a sack filled with stones and mud, settled deep within your core. It's not truly full, not nourished, but simply weighted down too heavy to demand more. Your limbs feel like lead, each muscle fiber protesting even the smallest movement. To lift an arm, to turn your head, requires an immense conscious effort that your mind is increasingly unwilling to expend. The cold seeps into your bones, a constant companion, but even that sharp sensation has softened, dulled by the pervasive exhaustion. Your skin feels stretched and dry, your breath shallow, barely stirring the air around you. Your eyelids are heavy, so heavy. They flutter, struggling to stay open, but the world outside offers little to hold your gaze. The dim light filtering through the cracks in the wall, the familiar patterns of the thatch, all begin to melt and merge into an indistinct haze. Your thoughts, once a chaotic jumble of hunger and worry, have slowed, becoming thick and molasses, like each idea struggling to form, then dissolving before it can fully coalesce. It's a gentle drift, a slow, inevitable surrender. The sounds of the world outside, the distant bleating of a goat, the faint murmur of the wind, even the occasional drip of water from the roof, all seem to recede, becoming distant echoes in a deepening silence. Your hearing, like your other senses, is muted, turning the vibrant symphony of life into a whisper, then barely a breath. It's as if the world itself is drawing back, leaving you in a quiet, enclosed space of your own making. You close your eyes and the darkness is absolute, immediate, and strangely comforting. There are no images behind your eyelids, no lingering anxieties, no vivid dreams to stir your mind. This is not the fitful, restless sleep of a worried soul, nor the dream-laden slumber of a mind processing the day. This is a profound, dreamless descent, A deep, heavy unconsciousness that feels less like sleep and more like a gentle fading, a slow, quiet release from the relentless demands of existence. Your body is heavy, so heavy, sinking deeper into the straw, into the earth beneath. You feel yourself dissolving, melting into the mattress, becoming one with the quiet, still air of the hut. All the struggles, all the desperate choices, all the hunger and the fear, they begin to recede, to become indistinct murmurs on the very edge of your awareness. The taste of bark, the crunch of seed grain, the sourness of the unthinkable meat, all these sensations fade, replaced by a vast encompassing emptiness that is neither painful nor pleasant, simply is. Allow your body to grow heavier still, sinking deeper and deeper into the quiet comfort of your bed. Feel the soft weight of your limbs, the gentle rhythm of your breath. Let your thoughts drift, like autumn leaves on a still pond, slowly, gently, until they too dissolve into the calm, still surface of your mind. You are safe. You are warm. You are tired. So very tired. Allow that tiredness to wash over you, a gentle wave pulling you down, down into the deepest, most peaceful sleep. Let go. Surrender to the quiet. Let your mind become as still as the darkest night, as calm as the deepest ocean. Drift. Sleep now.